All right, this is Miss Katz again, and today we're going to actually finish the study guide that we started yesterday. So I'm going to start with question number 10 because we went up to question number 9 yesterday. Question number 10 asks us to find a product. The product is an answer to a multiplication problem. And as you can see, there's a multiplication problem written right here. So I told you guys when you're multiplying decimals, just forget the decimals for a minute. Let's just do the math. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 2 is 7. Don't forget when you go to your next row, you're going to put a 0 placeholder. And then 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. Then we add. So we get 5, 12, carry the 1, and 2. Now we go back and we actually put in those decimals where they were to begin with. And we notice that there are 2 numbers after decimals. So we start at the back end, move 2 places. The final answer for question number 10 will be 2 and 25 hundredths. Question number 11, I'm actually going to move over to the side here. It is find the quotient. Quotient is the answer to a division problem, and you can see that here with the division problem. So we start with 5 ninths divided by 9 tenths. So we're going to keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, and flip over the second fraction. When we do that, there are no common factors top to bottom, so we simply multiply across. 5 times 10 is 50, and 9 times 9 is 81, sorry. And that is your final answer. All right, question number 12 simply asks you to write the reciprocal. Remember, a reciprocal is a flipped over version of a fraction. So instead of 9 23rds, the reciprocal will be 20 ninths. And you do not have to change that to a mixed number. We wanted the reciprocal. We wanted to see what it looked like when it was flipped over. All right, question number 13 again asks for a quotient, and notice that matches up with division. So to do that, the first number is always our dividend. It always goes in the house. The second number is always our divisor. It always goes outside. And remember that we cannot divide decimals if we have a decimal divisor. So we move that decimal to make it a whole number. In this case, I had to move it 2 places. Whatever I do outside, I'm going to do inside. 1, 2. And then that decimal just floats to the top. Now the problem we're really looking at is 560 divided by 14. There's a decimal sitting out here, but we may or may not need that in the process. 14 goes into 56. Well, I know that 14 is really close to 15. And if you're using clock numbers, 4 15s make 60. So let's check 14 times 4 to see if I'm going to get close to 56. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is actually 56. So 4 was a really good guess. When we multiply, we get 56, and we get a 0. Now don't forget, you have to bring down that other 0, and if we bring something down, something has to go up in its place. So 14 goes into 0 times, and that's 0. And now I'm done with my problem. So the answer to number 13 is 40. All right, question number 14 asks about a shelf being 6 2/3 inches wide. And if CDs are 1/4 inch wide, how many CDs can be placed on the shelf? Well, I like to think of this in a couple of different ways. Let's just see what would happen if I told you that the shelf was 6 inches and the CDs were 2 inches wide. How many CDs would you fit on a shelf? Most kids will tell me 3. And you get that from dividing. Well, that doesn't change simply because there are fractions in here. We're going to divide. We want 6 2/3 divided by 1/4. So first we need to change into an improper fraction. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20. So this fraction is 20/3. And notice it's still division. I'm not changing anything yet. All I did was sort of change the close, change what these fractions look like so I can work with them. Now, I keep the first one. I'm doing different colors so you can see. I keep the first one. I change to multiplication, and I flip the second one over. And now I look top to bottom. I don't see any common factors, so I'm simply going to multiply across. This equals 80/3. That is an acceptable answer. It is a simplified fraction, even if it's improper. But if we wanted to change it into a mixed number, all we do is take the 80 and divide it by 3. 3 goes into 8 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. When I subtract, I get a 2. I bring down the 0. 3 goes into 20 6 times. That makes 18 with a remainder of 2. And when I do that, that 2 becomes the numerator of my remainder, and the 3 from here becomes my denominator. So this is equivalent to 26 2/3. Okay. Question number 15 asks, what's a common error that students make when they divide decimals? Well, as you can imagine, one of the top errors is not moving the decimal, or moving the decimal incorrectly. Those are really the two biggies, because the division is the division. It was the same division that you did when we were dividing whole numbers. The only new thing that we learn when we do decimal division is moving that decimal, making sure it goes where it needs to go so that our divisor is a whole number. How are quotients, products, sums, and differences related? They're all answers to computation problems. A quotient is the answer to a division problem. A product is the answer to a multiplication problem. A sum is the answer to an addition problem. And a difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. Question number 17 isn't one that I can answer for you. You need to figure out which skill on this sheet has been the most troublesome for you, and then identify which skill in IXL you could use to practice that. That'll be individual to each student. And question number 18, name 2 great resources for studying in preparation for your test. Everybody better know that you can find information in your MSG and on the blog. Those are your 2 greatest resources for studying for your test, including this study guide. This study guide is almost identical to your test on Friday, but the numbers have been changed. So if you use this, your MSG, and your blog, you should be ready to go. Hope you guys study hard and you ace your test on Friday.